everyone. This is Dr. Thomson, Superintendent of Schools here in Norwood. So I wanted to say hello to everybody. Hope everybody is doing well out there and staying healthy. I do want to start off with a couple things. First is speaking about the medium of Facebook Live. So those that are watching on Facebook are probably used to Facebook Live. Those that are maybe watching this that has been downloaded and sent out afterwards through NCM probably do not understand the medium. So first of all, this is a live event, so I am live. This is unrehearsed, and I know other people use moderators. I have not been using a moderator. Part of that is that my administrative team and other people that I would ask to do that are pretty out straight right now. So asking them to try to moderate or receive the questions and process the questions for me is difficult. So what that means is that I am trying to speak live to people while trying to look at a screen, read questions, look at a piece of paper for questions that have been given to me earlier. And in doing that, it's not as smooth or rehearsed as it should be. So, or could be. Maybe should is not the word, but could be. For people who are watching on NCM, if you could please take that into account, trying to read a question, process what they're asking, as well as answer people in real time with very difficult questions, is difficult. So if people could be a little nicer about that, and sometimes I'll use a who instead of a whom. So because of that, so if you could just kind of keep that in mind. The other thing I'd like to talk about is our response to racism in this country. As we all know, there is protests going on, the unfortunate death in Minneapolis. So just, obviously, and people in the community received a letter on Tuesday. I read that last night as part of the school committee meeting that was offered by Dr. Galligan from the high school and Mrs. Durain. So we are in the process, and actually I believe it is up now. There is a web page on our school website of resources for families. We've also included some teacher resources there. We've also given resources to our teachers to help carry on, a conversation about racism, implicit bias, protests, and things along that line. So if you're having, looking at difficult conversations at home, I would point you to the Norwood Schools webpage to take a look at that. That should be up at this point. We will continue to add to it. We're also looking at, possibly joining with the police and adding an event, a community event, and being part of that. And you need to know that our counselors are reaching out to students and have been reacting to students who have reached out to us. And we will continue to do that. Our students' well-being and making them feel valued and answering their questions and being there for them is, extremely important. Also, you should know that, working on being cognizant and aware of racial bias is something we've been working on. We've been partnering with the Anti-Defamation League at the high school. They've offered training at our high school and at our middle school. This year we started a World of Difference, which is their peer leadership program around that work. Next year we are engaging in universal design for learning, and part of that is being culturally responsive in our design of our curriculum. And we are currently in the process of applying for a program through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, where it is about cultural relevance, the Cultural Relevance Leadership Program. So we continue to work towards that. We are also continuing to look to recruit teachers and members of our school staff of minorities. The past 2 years, we've engaged in a minority job fair. This past year, I joined what is known as Handshake, which is the ability to post job postings on college job boards. And those include UMass Boston, U Lowell, and Bridgewater State University. Those places tend to have significantly more minority students, but there is a systematic issue with the teacher pool, in that there are not many minorities who are choosing the teaching profession. And those that do tend to live in areas where there's also a need there. So would you necessarily move to take on a teaching position? But we have been actively trying to increase our minority representation. So with that, I will turn over to the questions that were given to me earlier. So I'll just kind of read through them. I know this is probably redundant, but any ideas on extended day camp? So the state just came out with summer camp guidelines last week. We have been processing those and figuring out how we would implement them and trying to create a budget around them, because the ratios of staff to student are a little bit different. The requirement for cleaning and sanitizing and things like that are a little bit different. So we are in the process of looking at that. I expect that by next week we will have some information about that, but we are looking to run that program. It might be a little delayed, might not start immediately, just to set it up and make sure we have everything in place, but that is in the work. Someone just said that, sure, my job is even more difficult lately. That is true. If I am babbling, it's because I had a 16-hour day yesterday, and I'm easily looking at another 10 or 12 today, and those are going 6 days a week. But I appreciate that, and I appreciate the 2 good jobs. So thank you. Of course, someone has to put in a comical question. So what new tricks has Lily learned since spending more time with you and your family? Is she hard at work coming up with ways teachers and students could put their best paw forward for the 2020-21 school year? Lily is our dog. She's a Portuguese water dog. And we actually don't call her a dog. We call her our fur baby. And the thing about Lily and about Portuguese water dogs is they're very intelligent, and they actually kind of train their people. So in the process of me being home essentially since the beginning of March, when I was first quarantined, is that she has actually trained us. She has a few toys that you put treats in. So she follows people around and keeps dropping the toys at their feet until they give up and put treats in them. And then she will go on to the next person with a different toy. So we have about 3 or 4 of those toys. And of course, they're not soft, they're hard, so they hurt when they hit your feet. So she has trained us to give her more treats while she's home. But my younger daughter is in the process of trying to teach her how to roll over, and it's actually pretty funny because it's she lays down and say roll over, she lays just flat on her side, looks out of one eye at you and wags her tail. So it's it is adorable, and maybe I'll get a chance to share a picture of her later on. Okay, our school is planning for remote learning over full school day in the event of another lockdown in the fall. So there's a lot of questions about the fall. So the commissioner last week informed the superintendents that that he's hoping to have guidance out for the opening of school, as summer programming for extended school year is supposed to come out next week. The week after, the week of the 15th, we're supposed to get plans for the fall. So with that, we will have some more details. The department is telling us that their information is going to be more directive than it has been in the past. So we can talk a little bit about this in theory, but the details are not going to be out until right before school ends. And then we're going to have to figure out how we meet those guidelines here in Norwood. But basically, we're looking at a continuum and something that's going to be flexible between, a full remote or people coming in part of the day. What I am expecting, and I want to stress expecting, I do not have inside knowledge of what that guidance is going to say beyond what I've heard and the tea leaves and the reading between the lines. But I expect that we will probably be in some sort of partial open based on the guidelines that are coming out for camps with only 10 in the group and 2 adults or 2 adults leading the group, small cohorts, distancing, masks, these sorts of things. So we expect that we're going to have to do something very, very similar to that come September. So that realistically means we will not be able to have all of our students in school the same day. Now, with that being said, should our numbers go up, and this goes back to the wearing of the mask and the social distancing and staying within your family and these sorts of things, but if the numbers of infections go up, we would possibly slide back to full remote again. So it's going to be a continuous. It's going to be a sliding scale. I fully expect it will be in phases, much like the state opening. Maybe it won't be 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe it'll be A, B, C, D. But if we're in this category, school looks like this. If we're in this category, we're in school like this. So we're going to have to design school and design curriculum that is going to address that continuum and that possibility. No, it's not going to be easy. We only have so many resources. We don't know what the state budget is going to be, so we need to be careful with that. Would it be possible to have elementary school teachers do Google Meets more? I think the remote learning would have been easier for kids to keep learning if there's teachers at the ready for a few hours at least daily. So there's a lot of research coming out about this, and I want to take a quick step back. Especially elementary school, but even middle school and high school is a human interaction that does not cross a video screen very well. So with that being said, it's not going to be safe, and you're not going to get a 7 or 8 year old who's going to be able to sit and look at a screen with difficult content and watch things without a teacher being able to show and do and give feedback in real time. So especially as you go lower in the grades, the amount of screen time is actually not productive. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to, this summer, kind of redesign our curriculum and be it a little more project-based. And again, using that partial in school, partial at home sort of model. Students would come in, get direct instruction, get feedback on their work, be able to go back home and work semi-independently, maybe with some check-ins or something along that line, on some sort of long-term project that use those skills that we're teaching them. So these units would continue on for, let's say, a month at a time, be theme-related, use multiple disciplines together. Now, with that being said, we are in the process of designing that. We put together a task force. We started that, and each different administrators, and we will be bringing in teaching staff as well. We'll be designing that, and one of them is around curriculum. But I'll tell you, this kind of change that we're talking about, and the change that we have inherited through this crisis, is something that is difficult. It's totally out of what any sort of training or anyone has even imagined doing in education. So we're going to try to do in 3 months, which probably would need to be done over 3 years. So I just want people to, but obviously we need to find a more engaging way of having students apply those skills, focusing on those essential standards that were handed out. So the next, the next one, wondering when we might know what the next year's elementary school day might look like. I can tell you it will probably be some sort of on and off, whether it's every other day, every third day, week on, week off. We don't know what that guidance is going to be, but that is probably what it's going to look like across the board. High school might be a little bit different. There was some conversation about limiting kids moving around, which would be difficult. I don't know whether the guidance will be a shorter day, but that's kind of where we are right now. So we are planning for that, but we're probably looking at starting in some sort of staggered piece because of the distancing requirements. We probably will still be in September. Hopefully we will not have a second flare-up and have to go fully remote, but you can see where designing a curriculum that is applicable in all of those situations is kind of a major challenge and a major push right now. I'm curious as to how schools are planning to address the restrictions that will be presumably in place in the fall to ensure that at least negative consequences of the students' physical and mental health, particularly around the younger children, constant use of disinfectants, mask usage, interference with social language, body language, facial expressions, as well as to consistently have to tell children to stay 6 feet away from friends. Yeah, this is going to be difficult. I'll keep going. There also may be an equal number of families that are worried about excessive use of disinfectants, lifestyle restrictions that may be detrimental to the well-being of the education of the children, especially younger ones. This type of sterile environment can be more risky than the actual, well, yeah, I don't know about that one. So a couple things. So let me hang on one second. Yeah, so, obviously the counseling and the social emotional piece is going to be important. There has been guidance from the Department of Ed on social emotional impact and the impact on students for us to assimilate into our curriculum. Part of the CARES Act, which is the last successfully passed legislation out of Congress, part of that in our grant to get that money, it's $345,000. Out of that money, we are going to put some money towards contractual mental health to help us address some of those issues. But yeah, it's going to be tough, and we're probably going to need to partner with families and parents to make sure that children understand that, and it's not because we want to be mean or don't want them to have friends, but it's for everybody's safety. And the other piece to this, which this question kind of gets into, is what if I don't want to send my kid? And again, we're going to have to be flexible with how we're approaching this, because there might be families that maybe the child has, a immune system that can't be exposed, or there's someone living in the house that can't be exposed, or the risks are too high along that. So this is something we're going to have to be prepared for. And again, that curriculum piece that's able to flex between fully remote and partially open. When will information be released about bus passes, the cost, the deadline, the upcoming school year? Traditionally, these are due before 6:30. We are looking to start that process next week. We wanted to make sure we had all the forms updated and our online payment piece put in. And that is actually important for us to figure out how many children are actually going to be looking for the bus. It is excessively important, extremely important, that you sign up, even if you're don't have to pay for the bus. If it's free for you, we still need you to sign up, because we need a number. We need a number of how many kids are going to be riding the bus. And there are families that have ridden the bus in the past that might not. It might be a feeling safe question, or it might be, unfortunately, someone is not working or not working as much, and they're able to drive them. And we get that, but the sooner we have the numbers, the better we'll be able to plan our bus routes, because those have to be separated as well. They're talking, at least initially, about every other seat. A student in every other seat, and staggering it and separating them. So that is another aspect we need to look at. Right now, we're not looking at the bus fees as far as changing. That might, after we get that guidance, we might have to change that. I'm hoping not. Another question on bus passes. I think we answered that one. Assuming that some level of remote learning to be expected in the next school year, is it possible to provide students with calendar invitations, remote classes, hangout meets, other than students having to read individual emails or Google Classroom? I know that calendar invites work well for adults. I don't know. I actually struggle with my two 20-year-olds about using a calendar. So, you can, and again, high school teachers, middle school teachers use Google Classroom. Elementary school teachers in general did not. There was a big learning curve on that. And also, all the Google products have gotten tremendously better in the last 2 to 3 months. So we'll see what happens. Part of that is that Google Classroom is our learning management. So kids are supposed to go into Google Classroom, to show that up. But maybe there is something that we need to do with our training to make sure that reminders go through as well. So next question, or I think that's the last of the early questions. Assuming some level of remote learning is to be expected next school year, is it possible to provide students with, oh, that's the same question. I'm sorry, someone put it in twice. So at this point, I'm going to try to go through and look at the comments on the side to see if there are any questions there that should be answered. Will there be staffing increases for counseling staff in schools to support students and staff experience with collective trauma? So again, what we're looking at, so this is, the big unknown. So we're in a budget situation where, we have a budget in Norwood because of its diverse tax base is not in some of the position that other places are. But we don't know whether we're going to see the level that was promised us. We don't know whether there'll be a decrease in state funding. We don't know. We hope. We don't know if the federal bailout for states and cities are going to come in the next few months. So all of that makes a difference. So if there is that federal money and there is more federal money for addressing those things, then yes, definitely. And I mentioned earlier in the CARES Act money that we have the $345,000. We are looking at contracting mental health services to have people to come in and help us help our kids and staff. Would or could classes be held outside during September and October? That is, they could theoretically, as long as it isn't raining or snowing or too cold. The other issue with being outside for how our curriculum and our instructional tools are set up is a lot of them are based in technology, and that would be difficult. It doesn't mean that we couldn't have some time or some more time outside in a class, but we have in several of our schools, we have outside classrooms, but they're really set up for one group of kids, one classroom. So it would be difficult to have everybody out at the same time, but that is something that we can definitely look at. And again, still waiting for that state guidance. And I know I sound like a broken record saying that, but everyone would be, we'd all be in a better place if we had that a month ago, and we'd be able to talk more about specifics. What happens to kids with working parents who can't assist them? It seems like an unfair disadvantage. Val, thanks. This is part of the quandary and why the state was hesitant to go into trying to push the curriculum forward. And that is an equity piece, which is, and this is why the instructional piece, the blended piece, if we can do it, or for as long as we can do it, will be a major improvement, because the kids are going to know they're going to have to come back and see their teachers. So there's going to be more accountability there. There's going to be more hands-on instruction. So kind of how instruction works now is you have lessons. They tend to be fairly short, and the kids either individually or often in groups, which will be somewhat different, coming back, but they get into and do the work. So that is difficult to replicate through a screen, but it is a disadvantage. So we are looking at and hope to, in part, again, that CARES Act money is extremely important to do some of this work. I'll be honest with you, I wish it was $945,000 and not $345,000. But we are looking at, when we are able to be face-to-face, having interventions either after school, before school, maybe even during school, to try to close those gaps. And, right now we're doing the Renaissance assessments. That's not an evaluation of the kid. It's just to get an idea as to where we are, because that's going to be important for our planning going forward, for the work over the summer, for your kids' work over the summer. We will also, because I'm having trouble playing the video. It will also be important when we come back. So this is important. I don't know if someone could tell me if they can still hear me at least. That would be great, because my little video thing is gone. So let me go back. It says I'm still live. Maybe it's just not showing on my end. So will extended day be available if we're in a day on, day off for parents to work outside the home? Kristen, I expect that we're going to have the same distancing issues at the elementary school. So I really don't know whether we'll be able to do that and still be compliant with whatever. And again, we're guessing at this point. So it might be, and it's a situation where when your kid's in school, you use extended day. When your kid's not in school, it's not necessarily available. But again, we're still waiting to get that guidance. Yeah. So, and this is so Val brings up a question. So yes, it is. So that is schools. People are kind of realizing how important schools are, not just to students' learning, but to the whole structure of how we run our society and people do work. So that is a piece that is going to be difficult. But maybe we expand our extended day and try to hire more people. But then someone would have to bring the kids after school was out to extended day, because and keep in mind that especially our elementary schools, but our schools we don't have extra space. We're not, especially the elementary schools. So we're using every space for everything, and that is going to be a challenge. Someone replied to Google Classroom question. Yeah. So someone brings up, I'm on Teens on an hourly business. We're still virtually learning in the fall. Why can't school run like a business? If teachers are in the classroom teaching, it's the same. Well, probably, teachers are parents too. Teachers, if they are home, so if a teacher is in school teaching half of the students, how are they going to meet with the other half of the students? So we need to look at this whole thing. But again, I will come back to the medium. Video. Basically, what needs to happen is we need to have instruction and independent work. Having kids sit in front of a screen to constantly get instruction is not going to be possible. You cannot have 20 some odd kids on a Google Meet and be able to interact with them. I'm sure you personally, with whatever you're doing, knows the difference between having a meeting of 3 or 4 or having 16 or 17 in a meeting, and how that works. Well, then multiply that by being young, short attention span, immature, not in a regular school environment, and you can see how that wouldn't work. But yeah, there are challenges. So you have teachers with toddlers, which is why recording lessons might be more of a piece. So it needs to be a blend of a lot of different things. It's and I know that parents are looking to have their kids occupied on something, and again, that project-based piece and that independent work based on the learning that they are doing, hopefully is going to increase that engagement and meet that need. But more screen time is not going to meet that. All right. Oh, good. Everybody can hear me. All right, good. Can you see me? That's a good question. All right, so if we're fully remote, we will definitely be doing more face-to-face time. For younger ages, being in front of a screen at the same amount of time as school doesn't seem feasible for children. Yeah, and again, Kim, I think I addressed that. We need to change our curriculum, and this is building the, and I'm going to go back. When we shut down, we thought we were shutting down for a couple weeks. It became a month. It became 6 weeks, and it became the rest of the year. So, so that remote learning piece, we were building the plane as we were flying it, and it actually was going through some pretty rough and turbulent weather. Um, so there's a lot of learning that has happened, but I think that we need to be more, look at the research that is now coming out from that, determine how to deliver that curriculum, increase that meet time. It might get a little easier where teachers have their kids engaged in a partial school, but I mean this is going to be, and so. And I know some of you, when I say part on, part off, are going, oh my God, how is that going to work? Well, we're having the same conversation. How is that going to work for us? Because if you have a teacher who has whose kids go to school in a different school district, or even the same school district, and she's on one schedule and the kid's on the other schedule, so we need to look at all sorts of things, like maybe making sure that kids in the same family are working on the same day, but we're all going to struggle with the same pieces, whether you're a teacher or whether you're a financial planner or a computer programmer. Those challenges are the same for all of us. So, and I think that's important to remember. So there are people saying, well, why can't teachers do more FaceTime? The same struggle they're having doing that is with their families and their kids at home. It's the same struggle you're having working from home, which is why I've been, pretty adamant on that we need to move to an asynchronous where kids are doing the work when it's doable, not when someone is on. So teachers have gone through, had classroom meetings. At the beginning of the week, go over the work, do some instruction, give some feedback, and checking in. I think we can probably increase that a little bit, be a little more consistent with that. But again, the work really needs to be instruction, apply it to this project. And I'm not talking about dioramas. I'm talking about something that really is worthwhile and substantial and hopefully and engaging. So, okay, I do not see. Can you comment on what the summer work will look like for CMS and NHS students? Will there be a lot more due to what we had not covered during the school year? So this, so we're going to see, the summer work that we've seen somewhat modified a little bit, but we are also. But we're also hoping to use those assessments and be able to give kids some specific things to work on. So it'll be at this point, I think everybody's a little exhausted from our trials and tribulations, which, there have been. But, taking a good 2-week break after school gets out, and then coming back and just keeping our mind engaged, and looking at that and those enrichment materials in every subject area, the summer math, the summer reading, and then looking at those assessments and where the gaps are. And again, the problem is that we need to be able to do that, but it might be some continuation of the freckle pieces, but we want to minimize that as well. We want kids to have a break from it before they come back to it. Okay. Molly, thank you for thanking me, but this is not me alone. I have an incredible team that I work with, and keep me upright at times. They just did it earlier this week, because all of us have times when we're feeling down. I'll be completely honest with you. At this point, not only am I working double-digit days, but I'm also up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about all these scenarios and what it means and how the heck we're going to do it. So I appreciate the support. I appreciate the patience. I feel what you're going through, and we're all going through it together. And we're gonna keep trying to do it right. There was a comment earlier on about the graduation. The graduation was amazing. It was a privilege to be a part of it, to see those kids off. I'm the tall guy in the back with a mask, but they, you could just see that they felt validated by being able to stand in front of Norwood High School, have their picture taken with their diploma, with their families cheering on, and it was just, again, I think, I've seen and heard of other ones, and I think that under the circumstances that was as good as it could get, and in some ways better. And for those of you who were not in the cars or maybe did not see it, there were teachers from every school lined up throughout the route behind the high school, cheering all those kids on as they went by. The jerseys from the athletic teams, the props, and the sets, pieces of the sets from the drama productions, all those things out there, with their teachers cheering them on for 3.5 hours, and that just goes to show how much our teachers care about our kids, how much we care about our kids, and how important it was to give them a proper send-off. So thank you for that. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I want to thank Margot and Brian for being on and answering some of the questions that have come through specific to their schools and such. So that was a huge help. Thank you very much. Norwood Public Schools, I'm going to assume that comment came from Mr. Joe Kidd. So I want to thank him as well for coming in and answering some of these questions. So thank you all for taking part. And again, if you're watching on NCM, this is me trying to read, process, and speak at the same time. And on 6 hours of sleep last night, I hope I did okay. But be kind. Be constructive. If it's not helping the situation, it's not helping the situation. So let's be kind out there. Everyone's a little short on patience. Support each other, help each other out, stay safe, social distance. And I know it's tough for the kids. The kids are having a hard time with that, but they really need to either be in a very small cohort and be socially distant. If this blows up and we have another outbreak, we're right back where we started, which is not what any of us want. We all miss our kids. Our teachers are hurting. They're really missing the kids. We're all missing our kids. I'm missing walking through our schools and seeing our kids. So thank you for that. And I'll see you in a couple weeks. And hopefully at that point we'll have as soon as we have some definites with what it probably will look like, we will share those with you. And trust me, I'm running out of patience as well, because we would have liked to have been planning for this several weeks ago, if not months ago. But part of it is figuring out where we're going to be. Part of it is none of this is where anyone in this country has been in over 100 years. So thank you. Stay well, stay safe.